you came to be the other half of it.
So, hi, I'm Tara. I'm a voice actor. I was doing voiceover for a little while as a teenager, and I got my very first anime job working for a company called 4Kids.
Yeah.
My controversial statement. My very first anime job ever was an episode of Pokemon called Bulbasaur and the Hidden Village. I see Bulbasaur right there.
Yeah.
I see you. And I worked for 4Kids for many years. Probably played 7,000 roles on their many, many shows, as we all did. And I had no idea that there was anything real controversial about the company until I started doing conventions. And I would meet you amazing people, and some of you would say really, really nice things to me about how I was part of your childhood, and hug me, thank me, and some of you would yell at me and say, how dare I ruin an anime they loved. I was like, oh, all right, there's something here. Okay, and I started, looking into it. I realized, I knew we had censorship issues, but I didn't know how deep they went. I didn't know about changes to storylines. I didn't know, because by the time that stuff got to us, we were just in the dark. We were working really fast. So, fast forward many years, and I did want to make some kind of podcast about the company, because I was like, no one's done a real, people have done stuff, but they haven't talked to the people who were there. No one came to me, no one came to the writers, and I'm like, there's just all these myths and rumors, and I guess I'll be the one to tell the story if no one else is going to do it. And I reached out to a podcast company, and I said, I want to do this, and then that's where Steve comes in.
Hi, I'm Steve. I've been podcasting for 15 years now.
What's the big one?
I'm sorry, that joke fell flat. I meant to say I was at an AA meeting. My name is Steve. I've been podcasting now for nearly 15 years on a podcast called the One Piece Podcast. Try and guess what that's about.
It's about Yu-Gi-Oh!
Precisely. We've been doing that show for a long time now. A long time because I didn't even know what the podcast was before I joined it. But of course, the big elephant in the room there was at one point there was another version of One Piece, the anime, dubbed by 4Kids. Long story short, it didn't go so hot. And of course, that was just always just, as a Western fan, it always got brought up in conversation at some point. Eventually, we did a podcast, a mini-series, where my co-host Alex and I watched through every single episode and talked about it. And
It was called Forced to Watch 4Kids.
That's what it is. Because it felt like that sometimes.
Alliteration,
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. Thank you, I came up with it. But it was it started as a goof, but the more we did it, the more we just had questions. Why were some of these choices made? How come you couldn't have English text on a show that was in English, on books and on signs? And so many other things I'm just spacing out, but it's so many strange edits, puns too, and we just thought there's no way we're ever gonna get. I guess we're just never gonna know. And then I don't know, Zach, who also was the show, I guess he dusted off an email he hadn't checked in a while, and Tara came emailing a while.
About 6 months later.
Yeah. But I thought and as she said, she wanted to do a show, talk to people that were there, kind of getting some actual stories, some real facts out there. I thought, great, this would be a great show. I think we should produce this. I can't wait to listen to it. And then they asked me to be the co-host. Because I remember waking up at 6:30 in the morning, watching the WB11 in New York, catching Pokemon.
Oh yeah.
As when it first hit the airwaves. And I've been there. I was watching Pokemon, I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I began to hate watch 4Kids TV. I was there for all of it, and we thought like, it's like we need someone with experience watching stuff, as opposed to people that had experience working there. So.
And his memory is insane. He remembers. I've never watched these shows.
Yeah.
I can't watch myself. So thank God that.
Like in 2004, they had a poll of what show they should air early between One Piece, F-Zero, GP Legend, and Mew Mew Power. And I remember Mew Mew Power was absolutely killing it on the online. And then 4Kids said F-Zero wins. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. So, there's a hint. That's a taste of my memory of 4Kids.
Steve, were you an angry message board kid?
Oh yeah. Because I remember starting to begrudgingly watch 4Kids properties when Shaman King was licensed.
Right.
I was on a forum, Shaman King Uncensored.
I did my best work on that show.
You tried. No, and I just remember like we were just like, because from my point of view, and you know, I was young back then, but it was kind of just like, it's like, oh, we love these series. It's like we want to see them. We want to see them here in the U.S. But we want to see them, you know, as they were. You know? It's like stop writing out, you know, deaths and stop giving characters weird accents. It was a lot of that.
Sorry, you didn't think that Joey's like Brooklyn accent?
No, that could stay. That could stay. Yeah. Because at the time period, like the Shonen Jump magazine in the U.S. was a thing.
Yeah.
So I was being introduced to all these series, like, oh, this manga is great. And it's like 4Kids has the anime, and it's like.
It's not all hate, though. I know that the podcast is
Yes.
not all hate.
Yeah, so
But it's a lot.
I was gonna say, so I actually want to like go back to the time when 4Kids was handling a lot of these anime dubs, because it was a time when accessibility as far as anime went. I mean, it was a struggle to get your hands on anime. I don't know if anybody else out here is as old as I am and used to like go in the back room at the general like Asian import store, and they just went like behind literally like a bed sheet curtain, and that's where all the questionably legal fan sub VHSs were. But that's the thing, is that like we basically were just consuming what we were presented with, and I assume, Tara, that on your end, dubbing these shows, that was very much what it was.
Yeah, so the same time we were dubbing for 4Kids, we were also working for a company called Central Park Media. I don't know if you guys remember that. Yes. Some of you are too young. Yeah. And so, but I remember I would go to like Tower Records, and there was a tiny little section where they had those videotapes.
Yeah.
The VHS tapes, and no one watched. Very few people watched that stuff. And when I worked for 4Kids, a lot of them were like, no one's ever going to see this.
No one with an internet connection.
Yeah. So again, I think, and we took it as actors. I think I came at it in a different way.
Yeah.
But again, I always joke that like if you're from New York, you would have to go to Kim's Underground Video to like find any anime.
Oh yeah.
So and we had no idea that this was going to be a big deal. We quickly figured it out. I mean, you know, when it was on every newspaper cover and every news story, and kids in school were being banned from schools. Who had their cards taken away in school?
I was so I'd already gone through Tamagotchis at that point, so like I was an expert at like hiding my stuff. When Pogs, Tamagotchis, Pokemon cards.
Yo-yos. Yo-yos.
Yes. Oh my god, yes.
Duncan? Yeah.
Yes. Oh my god, I had like I think mine was like a firestorm or something. It was yellow and red. I was
You were so late.
I think we're a good company.
Yeah.
I think we are. No, I do. Well, and so again, it's like, I think though that Pokemon in particular was so crucial in helping to popularize anime in the U.S. Because I think that before that, a lot of the time people looked at anime, and there was a lot of assumption that it was kind of all hentai. And then you have Pokemon, and it's like, oh, this is definitely a show for kids. And you know, Steve, as you were mentioning, I was in the same boat as you. I woke up early every morning before school when I was, in 6th grade, I want to say, to watch Pokemon before I got on the school bus.
And what we're learning, we're talking, so basically the podcast is us interviewing everybody we possibly can who worked there.
Yeah.
Mostly behind the scenes people, because the actors can't answer the questions. We're interviewing the writers and the producers and the guy who made the Yu-Gi-Oh logo, and it is an amazing story. I mean, it really was a fascinating story. But what we're learning is it was either make these changes to these shows or not have them air at all.
Yeah.
And honestly, I truly feel that if they had not aired at all, we might not be sitting here right now.
I totally agree, because as you say, anime was such a niche market. And yes, there was some anime on TV. Pokemon, of course, was a huge shining example, and I think also helped kind of in a way, even though it didn't air on Toonami on Cartoon Network, but I feel like it kind of helped usher in that era where they took this anime that had already been dubbed, but nobody had seen, and then because it was airing at weird syndicated times really early in the morning, and they went, okay, let's put this all in an after-school block so that people can actually see it. And so it's very interesting to me, because I actually think that it's because of, 4Kids and these early dubs that that was kind of people's gateway into like becoming full-blown otaku, and that's what led to people then being like, I hate this, they're ruining everything.
Yeah.
Would you say that was your experience?
Yeah, I would say so. I begrudgingly. No, I can't help but agree, because I was aware of anime at the time, but it was very niche. Even like the anime that was on Cartoon Network at that time was like Speed Racer, Voltron, Robotech. That was about it. It was very it was retro stuff, and then Pokemon really kind of ushered that in for me. It was the gateway, because I think because I liked Pokemon so much, I was willing to give Dragon Ball Z a shot, and just have faith in whatever Toonami had on at that point. So I think that's accurate. I think that's very true.
One of the interviews we did was with a writer named Mike Pecorello, who was awesome, and then he ended up being he left 4Kids to work at Nickelodeon, and I said, what was the feeling about 4Kids at like a company like Nickelodeon? Were they like 4Kids, or were they like, he's like, no, they were like, we want to figure out how to do this. We want to make all that money they're making with the toys and the things, so it wasn't frowned. I was afraid he was going to say, no, they were laughing at them, but no, it was respected, because listen, it was about commerce. I mean, the bottom line is the shows were a vessel to sell toys.
Let's not figure out much.
That's 100% what it was. And it's interesting because, in my research of the sort of history of anime and its popularity in the US, I used to do a Sailor Moon podcast for years. And so, looking into Sailor Moon specifically, that is exactly what they wanted. They wanted to bring Sailor Moon to North America to sell toys. And, famously, there was almost a hybrid live-action animation version of Sailor Moon by Toon Makers. And it has a very Saban sort of feel to it, like Power Rangers. But again, it was because Power Rangers had been so successful that suddenly these companies became interested in bringing Japanese properties to America, because they saw the money Bandai was raking in with toy sales.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, and then especially, something like Pokemon as well, you found yourself in a position of not only was there this anime, but I think that the anime really helped bolster the popularity of video games in the US.
Yes. And 4Kids did, so again, things that we learned, 4Kids had the licensing to everything except the cards and the video games, which were the big money makers. So they had to work hard to make a ton of money to make up for not having the rights to those things. And we talked to the president of 4Kids, Norman Grossfeld, and we talk about One Piece. And basically, what we found out was just that they wanted, okay, first of all, let's dispel the rumor. You want to dispel the rumor?
The one where it was like 4Kids was tricked into licensing One Piece so they could get the magical Doremi. No, that's not true. I don't have to get long-winded that, but no, One Piece was huge, and it was like license that huge anime and make that huge anime money. So.
Well, it wasn't even that huge anime money. It was that Toei wanted the toy money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and they were like, figure out how to put this on the air so we can make toys of One Piece. And I don't remember any One Piece toys from that time.
No, I don't remember.
Oh, I do.
You said what do you remember?
From Mattel, yeah.
Oh, we gotta get our anyone has
They had a stretcher
Yeah.
Luffy
Who
that
has
had...
Mattel One Piece toys on you right now? Let's bring them up here, get them too. I'm just kidding.
Someone frankly runs out of room.
No, what? Tell us about these One Piece toys that you did come across. Well, because no, but it's interesting because again, like coming at it from the toy angle, I remember so vividly in the like initial syndicated run of Sailor Moon on some of the UPN networks and things. I vividly remember that the way I was introduced to it was seeing toy commercials.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they had like those like Barbie.
Yeah, they were basically like Barbie type dolls, and I, being a Barbie fan, was like, I gotta get these. And that is truly like how any of this comes to be. Is it really is the commerce of it. And so I think that 4Kids, again, I mean, number one, they called the company 4Kids, so literally it's like we're making stuff for children, and it did a really good job of marketing itself to kids.
Yeah, well, see, this is another thing we learned, again, if I bore you.
Yeah, no.
Shut up. But, okay, so we understand that we have to change lollipops to, cigarettes to lollipops. We understand that we have to do this. But the stuff I didn't know is that, and I knew there's something called these kid bid laws and standards of practices, all this stuff.
Yeah.
You can't air a commercial for a toy. You can't put a Yu-Gi-Oh toy commercial on during Yu-Gi-Oh. There's a certain amount of time you had to wait before that could even air so that the kid would not confuse the show for a commercial or the commercial for a show, vice versa.
That's fascinating.
Right? So the fact that you saw that commercial, it couldn't have been on.
No, it wasn't during Sailor Moon.
Yeah,
It was watching like, I don't know, X-Men, you know? Like,
Right, so they're contending with all these rules.
Yeah.
Right? This is the stuff I didn't realize. And again, that's just another uphill battle for them. And again, because I still have I'm still savvy about for kids.
Of course, yeah.
And I just lost what I was gonna say. No, I think when I was watching through the 4Kids version of One Piece, I think a lot of it was like, how much of this is on 4Kids and how much of it is standards and practices?
Oh.
Because like the rules of cartoons on Saturday morning from
Yes.
6 a.m. to noon, completely different than any other time of day. Because probably a lot of you at some point watched Toonami, whether it was the weekday block.
I think they all
Saturday
watched
The
night,
midnight run when they show blood and they can curse a little bit.
Yeah, they got away with way more. So I think like doing this podcast, kind of finding out that I think a lot of it was like, a lot of the 4Kids edits might seem like overkill, but I think it was almost like that. They're like, hey, we really got to make sure this is good to go, so we don't get any notes back.
Yeah. Oh, the other thing because thank you guys who interact with us on social media, because you guys bring a lot of great stuff to our attention, so thank you. But someone said this week, and I was going to talk about it in our intro when we recorded this week. So we were recording in New York. 4Kids was based in New York City. We started around 1998. 2001, September 11th happens in New York. Standards and practices, all that kind of stuff. We were even more cautious.
Yeah.
And everyone was even more cautious, especially with children's television, about violence, about destruction, about all of this stuff. It just intensified censorship. And that didn't occur to me, but of course, duh.
Yeah,
Of course, and it should have, and good. I'm glad,
Oh yeah.
again, still the lollipop cigarette and the donut
And the jelly
I know
donuts.
all
The puns.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
puns, yeah.
Americans couldn't possibly understand what onigiri is.
Listen, episode 1 of our show, we tackled the jelly donut. Listen to episode 1, if nothing else. We interviewed Michael Higley. He's like, it was late. I was writing. I didn't know what onigiri. I just said donut. I don't know. He's like, I didn't need to start an international incident.
It was the very early days of the internet. We weren't quite the globally aware population that we are now. So
You used to
I
talk to
get it.
people in person instead of texting.
I know, yeah.
I know. Thank you for bringing it up because I wanted to say I think part of it was because there were so many changes to the anime, like getting rid of a lot of like the Japanese cultural stuff.
Yeah.
because I think it's still like, it's a bygone era back then where they thought kids will not comprehend this. And I think that wasn't giving kids the benefit of the doubt, or at least like, maybe just like, why not like kind of introduce them to something different that they're not used to. I think in the early 90s, we're still coming off of that weird kind of xenophobia with Japan, to be frank, not to get too real. But I mean, also like, if you go back and look at the public response to Pokemon, it's really cringy the way some news reported on it, just like, oh, Japan is invading us. And it's like, no.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of rhetoric of like the Japanese invasion from a media
Yes,
standpoint.
in media, yeah. It's not like the episode of South Park. It's not quite like
Yeah.
But I kind of like, I can't but sympathize a little bit, because I think it was like, that was still like, well, this is the way, this is how it's done. I mean, Pokemon was still a huge success. Jelly donuts be damned. But I think like nowadays, it's so different now. It's just, especially with, me as like someone who's like watched anime dubs like since the 90s, just seeing how just not only like how true they are to like the original script, but just like how like everyone kind of is aware of so many of these cultural things now.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's definitely like a lot of it is like, it was the times, as they say.
Well, I'm curious too, Tara, for you, because anime dubbing was so novel and new in the US at the time. I mean, and as you say, you went into it thinking, is anybody even gonna watch this? Like, what was your, I mean, like, what was going through your head when you first started, like, voicing this cute little creature with a bowl growing out of its head?
All right, so I'll give the quick version. So basically, I was hired for that episode to play a character named Melanie.
Right.
And I'm always early. I can't help it. So I got there early. Luckily, I got to watch Veronica Taylor dub the role of Ash. So I was like, okay, this is how dubbing works. Okay, I got this. And then we did Melanie's lines. We finished early. And they said, hey, while you're here, you see that like bluish guy? So the Oddish and Bulbasaur were in that episode. So they were like, okay, so sound like the Japanese. They played me this Japanese, and it was like, dame, because it was Fushigi Dame,
Right.
Japanese. And they said, sound like that, but say Bulbasaur. What else do I say? Just Bulbasaur. I was like, good luck with your show. I was very young, very eager, and I think we were making $40 an hour, and that sounded like just a windfall. And I did it, and again, it's the mouth thought. That's why sometimes it's sar, and sometimes it's and I did it.
I'm looking at life in a whole new light now.
Yeah.
It's weird, right? So I left, and again, they didn't know they gave me a big part. They had no.
Well, because they were only getting episodes in small
One or
batches.
two
Yeah.
episodes, and Michael Hagney says in the interview, he goes, we knew there were 150 of them, so we figured, okay, a couple, 3 so per episode, and that they would rotate.
Right.
So luckily, it was just luck that was one of my jobs. Because again, I was excited about playing Melanie, and none of you know who that is.
She was very soft-spoken.
She's very sweet. And I looked at a lot of that work, and it's not that it's, and again, I never want to trash the actors, and we're very careful about that on the podcast, and the writers too. I mean, listen, they were doing the job. These are great writers who have done some amazing things that you have all watched since then or before then, we were doing the best we could in a very confined amount of time, with very little information. I mean, we go into detail. There's I'm trying to remember. It'll come up, but I think it's the interview with like John Kalish or somebody, where they would ask the Japanese, like, hey, can you tell us where this character line is going so we know how to write? And sometimes they would refuse to give them information. So that is the answer for a lot of the times why certain characters are not fleshed out, or storylines are changed, because they're keeping it safe in case something crazy happens in the next episode.
Right.
And their hands were often really tied, and they couldn't count on the manga for being exactly the blueprint for the show, unfortunately. So I don't know. It's a long-winded way of saying.
Well, no, I mean, because I think that's the thing is you really were creating in a bubble, and again, there wasn't this big global awareness of like, this is where the story is going. You had to really seek that out. And even then, it was like I was looking at scanned manga pages and reading like RTF docs with translations of what it said in the bubbles, because and also doing this all on broadband internet, which like you had to like dial up, and oh my god, it took forever. It took forever. I will never forget when we first got like cable internet, and I downloaded just so many anime theme songs.
When the writers started, I mean, we talked to a lot of them about this. The way they would write the episodes, they would have the literal translation right. They would have a VHS tape. They would be rewind, pause, try to count the lip flaps.
Yes.
Yeah, come on. Like,
VHS.
Yeah.
It's like,
I feel for them.
Yeah.
Considering it a pretty good job. Like,
Yeah. Well,
it's hard for me to bash.
In addition, it's like, they're dealing with the constraints of having to match the flaps. Writing dub scripts is very challenging. It is a totally different skill set. Just like dubbing is a different skill set.
Totally different.
And on top of that, again, they have no idea where the story is going, and they're dealing with all kinds of guidelines that are like, you can't do this, because of the time block that these shows were airing in. So
I also want to add, doing this podcast, like finding out how young a lot of you were. Like,
Us. Yeah.
the people that want to yeah. We all, well, we were young because we were talking about
children.
No, just like a lot of you were like fresh out of college, like the actors and stuff, and even like a lot of the people on the production side. Again, it's like I remember where I was going out of college. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great gig. And it's like, why not?
Yeah.
Good job. I don't know. I don't know.
Once in a while, Steve will say something nice about the work we did.
Yeah. Get paid $40 an hour to just say Bulbasaur into a microphone.
But it was still at a time where it's like you didn't have that instant feedback on social media.
Yes.
It was like you had to go digging. Like you had to go digging in those forums until 4Kids made their own forums.
Or you had to like hang out in the magazine sector at like a Borders and be reading New Type or America, and then like somebody else would come over and see that you were reading that magazine, and they'd be like, "Oh, you also like anime?" And then we would talk about it. that was my experience. Yep. So obviously, one of the reasons that we're doing this live panel today is we want to get some questions from all of you that you like, topics that you want answered on the podcast, things that you're curious about. So I'm going to come down there, and if you have any questions, Tara's going to be making a list. Oh yeah, here, give me some ribbons. I got ribbons for people who come and ask questions.
Some of the questions you have, we might already have answers to. So basically, there's I think 12 episodes out right now. Well, we've done over 30 interviews. So we've gotten a lot of questions answered. Hopefully we can answer whatever you guys have here, but if we can't, we're gonna add it to the list, and we're gonna try to find out for you guys. We've already found some lost media.
Oh, yes!
Yeah. Oh, okay, I'll tell you this. So I found at least one lost Ultraman dubbed episode, possibly two. And this is the news flash.
Breaking news right here at Anime Los
I
Angeles.
didn't hear about this, but we found some lost episodes of Funky Cops. Who remembers Funky Cops?
You know, I missed one.
Yeah.
Like 3 people.
Wait, Steve, do you remember it? You're like the Rolodex.
Oh yeah, I remember it. Not well, because I think I didn't watch that one too much, but Funky Cops, yeah. How can you forget that premise? They're cops and they're funky.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that I think most people can agree on is the music that 4Kids did was pretty solid.
Oh yeah.
So we've interviewed two the music writers so far. And they're fascinating.
I will say that in some of those early dubs, they did replace the music, and the music in the deep 90s dub of Sailor Moon is amazing. Like, it's so good. Thank you. You get it. All right, so if you do have any questions that you would like answered, please just form an orderly queue right here.